What's up, world? This is Razzaq of Total Razzaq. What is developmental trauma? Well, developmental trauma is a term used in the literature to describe childhood trauma, such as chronic abuse, neglect, or harsh adversity in their own homes. So when a child is exposed to, say, overcoming stress and their caregiver doesn't try to reduce their stress or is the cause of the stress, the child experiences developmental trauma. So, hey, can trauma actually affect you as an adult in certain ways? You're absolutely right. But before I get into that very quickly, what are some examples of developmental trauma? Abuse, where we're talking about physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. When we talk about neglect as a developmental trauma, we're talking about physical or an emotional. An example of some household dysfunction, some of the outcomes of it, we're talking about mental illness, we're talking about mother treated violently. The child can actually get developmental trauma because of that. Divorce can be developmental trauma. Incarceration, even substance abuse in the home can cause a child to have developmental trauma. So developmental trauma are also called adverse childhood experiences, and these are chronic family traumas such as having a parent with mental illness or substance abuse, losing a parent due to divorce, abandonment, or incarceration, witnessing violence, and etc. Now back to like the meat and potatoes in which people really relate to, like what is the possible risk outcomes of having developmental trauma growing up as an adult. Some of the behavior outcomes would be lack of physical activity, smoking, alcoholism, substance use, or miss work. You just don't even go to work quite often. Some of the physical and mental health outcomes of developmental trauma would be severe obesity, diabetes, depression, suicidal attempts, STDs, heart disease, cancer, stroke, broken bones, and the list goes on. So trauma is prevalent across all populations. It's not singled out by race, by age, by gender. Across the spectrum, developmental trauma, people can be at risk if they have certain factors in their upbringing, even as an adult. So there's a study called the ACE, and its data is significant not only for the link between childhood trauma and lifetime poor health, but also because of the population it studied. The majority of the study responds to were Caucasian, middle class, and had secondary education. The data demonstrated that even in relatively enfranchised populations, rates of traumatic exposures for children are remarkably high, with a 15% prevalence of adults reporting an ACE score of 3 or more from their childhoods. In data collected each year since 2010 across 33 states, 20% of adults report an ACE score of 3 or more. These data challenge the idea that trauma occurs only within certain marginalized at-risk communities. So Total Razzaq cares about the community's behavioral health. That's my particular passion. So if you're passionate about behavioral health, shop Total Razzaq's products, shop Total Razzaq's services by visiting @Total Razzaq on social media or total-razzaq.com. Have a good one.